Hey, what's going on, people? You're watching the Unity Sessions. We're joined today by David Enever. How are you doing, sir? We talked about the time and night it is over there. You holding up okay?
Yes, Jay, I'm awake. It's all good.
Yeah.
Two
Yeah.
2:30 here in the morning in Australia.
Yeah, Australia, man. Like saying to him off camera, we thank him for that wake up, man. And it all kind of all funny how things work together sometimes. But I think a big part of your journey has been the kind of insomnia thing. Talk to me. What's going on?
Yeah, well, I've probably been writing songs for as long as my youngest son. He's nearly four, Toby, and as little kids do, they often wake you up, or wake. He's often waking his mum up, which in turn wakes me up, and yeah, I'd never go back to sleep. Yeah, it was happening for weeks. And I started reading scripture just to change it up a bit at night time. And then all these lyrics started popping into my head, and I'd jot them down on my phone. And after I did that, usually got a song down, I'd go to sleep. So the spirit works in mysterious ways, they say. And definitely this was the case for me in my songwriting.
Yeah, honestly, I think like the more I hate you talk is kind of the more I understand kind of the holistic picture. Because yeah, I don't actually know that many people who have kind of such a strong heart for kids ministry. And the fact that you're saying that it's kind of all works in accordance with your son and the insomnia thing and being up in scripture, it kind of all makes sense. But where do you feel it comes from, that kind of drive for young people?
Yeah, it's probably got a bit to do with Toby, but I do have a background teaching young kids. So I've been teaching in primary schools probably for, I think it's 13 or 14 years now. A lot of different Christian primary schools around my part of Australia, New South Wales, and also Victoria is where I started. All these different British sounding states. Yeah, so a range of 5-year-olds to 12-year-olds usually, and I was always helping out with the worship services at schools and local churches where I was living. So it probably stemmed from that too, playing other people's songs. So in the back of my mind, I guess I always thought, well, I could probably do something too. I've got something to provide.
Hmm.
Yeah, and Toby just sort of was the catalyst, I guess, a few years ago. Yeah.
Yeah. Like how would you like place yourself? So do you see yourself as CCM, that contemporary Christian music?
Yeah, I think so. With probably more of a focus on kids ministry.
Hmm.
But the more I've been getting like using social media to try and promote my stuff, as obviously you can't do that to kids on social media, so it's parents and grandparents and teachers and that. A lot of other people, like wider audiences, have come from it, which has been good. And yeah, since my producer, he's had a lot of experience in country music. I think some of my latest tracks have a bit of that country vibe to it,
Hmm.
um, country sort of rock. Uh, but yeah, I reckon CCM. That's what a few people have said it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm always interested in genres, mainly for like how long genre will kind of be a thing. I think it's fading out, like as a
Oh,
general
okay.
rule. Because yeah, you know how it is. Do you remember, like, say back in the day, it's like you find one of the 12 studios in your country, and like you'd record all your stuff there, and everyone will kind of have that sound of that city. Like you take a Liverpool Beatles or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, but like nowadays, it's like everyone's like mixed for everything. I think you just named about three genres just now, trying to explain your songs.
Yeah, well, it's cool. I've connected with lots of artists on Instagram since I've been getting into it, and I had to go. There was a remix challenge for with a hip hop artist, like
Yeah,
within about a month or so, and I even had a crack at that, which was a bit of fun. My
yeah,
my rapping was like terrible compared to everyone else that entered, but it was good fun doing it, just changing the bridge of this song. Yeah, so it'd be interesting to see how the music evolves over the next few years.
yeah.
Yeah, see where it
Yeah,
goes.
lyrical exercise. How do
Yes.
you find the balance as well between like because like I'd imagine like kind of thinking about it being a bit awkward in terms of, so you're trying to make child friendly music, um and like often the funnel kind of has to either go through parents or like people in education or something. but you also want it to be like cool and relevant enough so that like the kids are like jumping on it. Like how do you go about finding that balance?
Yeah, well, I actually test a lot of my songs and stuff I put in my playlists with my kids, which is really cool. So they're the guinea pigs. Got an 8-year-old son, Rowan, a 6-year-old daughter, Bonnie, and Toby's nearly 4. So they often listen to a playlist I'm forever pushing called Upbeat Christian Kids, which
Hmm.
has like, I think it's got like 15 or so of my songs and 75 songs altogether. And usually they yay or nay it, which is good. And I figure I don't want to make it too kiddie because often you'll have those albums and playlists where the kids, like the real young kids, might like it, but the parents hate it.
Yeah.
It's just too kiddie. So I think it's just coming across. The knack is to get it across not just the kids, but also the parents and the teachers, the other people that have to listen to it too, the
Hmm.
gatekeepers.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so, and I don't know, I think just some influences over my music over the years. Like you mentioned the Beatles before, I love the Beatles. So hopefully a bit of the rock sound sometimes comes in through some of the songs. I did a song this year called "Cast Out in the Right" about Jesus challenging Peter to cast out one more time, and it ended up having like a Beach Boy sort of sound to it.
Mm.
My bass guitarist probably had a lot to do with that. That was the brief I gave him to give it a bit of a Beach Boy vibe. Yeah, so I think some of my musical influences have come out in some of the mixes, which is cool. And hopefully it's not too like niche, like kiddie sort of songs like Baby Shark or something like that. as well as that's done, that little earworm.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. And like in terms of the kind of look and aesthetic, is it kind of a conscious thing to represent yourself in like a animated form? I see you got one of the badges on there.
Yeah, well, my wife just came up with that, and it's it's funny how like it sort of came out and we started promoting it. Then I started wearing flat caps. So if she did it like a month later, she probably would have incorporated a flat cap in the logo. Yeah, I think that's because it's more of a kid ministry. Yeah, it seems to be a bit more effective, and yeah, well, I'm pretty pumped actually about a music video I just popped out a week or so ago for my I've done a cover of Angels We've Heard on High, and I got permission off the Saddleback Kids Club in America over in
Nice.
California to use footage of the animations. That they do really cool scripture cartoons. So hopefully I can use some of their footage for a lot of my other songs. As they're nearly all based on scripture, I could probably
Yeah.
find relevant cartoons that would suit the lyrics. And I've just found that when I use cartoons or animated graphics, it's engagement's a lot higher with the kids and just my audience in general. And I usually find it a bit funner to work with too when I'm mixing videos,
Yeah.
which is
Yeah, man,
cool.
that feels like a natural progression for sure. And them Saddleback guys as well, shout out to them.
Yeah,
Their thing's
definitely.
always
They're
pretty
awesome.
awesome.
Heyo.
Yeah. It's crazy because I discovered them as an adult. I feel like I was like just late to the party, you know?
Yeah, well, they're awesome. I let my kids watch their little 2-3 minute videos heaps. I remember back as a
Yeah.
kid, my mum was a scripture teacher, and she'd often we'd have the video cassettes VCR at home, and she'd often let us or make us watch the Hanna Barbera Bible time traveling
Hmm.
stories, which were really cool, but they go for like 25-30 minutes. Saddleback do these little 2-3 minute hits on
Yeah.
scripture, which is I think is a lot more effective with my age kids, particularly the
Yeah.
4-year-old. My 8-year-old's probably ready for the longer ones now. Yeah.
Yeah. To how much you use these kids as well. I think they must be due a producer credit or an A&R credit or like
Yeah,
something on
yeah.
this
Well,
project,
they've
surely.
actually done the backings in a couple of songs. I did
Yeah.
a Mother's Day song this year for schools, and yeah, all three of my kids are in it, and Toby right at the end.
Okay.
Um, she actually like physically says right at the end, "Mum, I love you every day." Just with
Yeah.
a cute little 3-year-old voice. So that came up pretty cool.
Yeah, I was gonna ask about that, man. Like that just works so well. And I think in terms of what you're trying to do as well, because I was wondering, because I know you do work with schools and such. I was like, oh, did you get like a kids choir? But you're saying that's all homegrown.
Yeah, I did. I got a kids choir too. For my original album, "Be the Light, Be the Hope," I got about a dozen kids that I was teaching at school. I just got permission through the school and their parents to come. They come to the studio and
Mm-hmm.
we recorded backings. I think there's about 7 or 8 songs on that debut album. It's in the background there. My head's in the way. "Be the Light,
Nice.
Be the Hope."
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and the Mother's Day one this year, I didn't go through the school. I went through a mate that's a music teacher, so she teaches singing to lots of kids. So yeah, we got permission from their parents to get them to help out with the Mother's Day song. Plus, I used 3 of my own 3.
Yeah.
Uh, so no, yeah, it's worked out pretty well. So it's good to have connections in that area.
Yeah. That's really nice, man. Definitely, yeah. Like I for one definitely enjoy hearing more of that. It just worked so well, you know.
Yeah, and they get a big hit, like a great experience from it, working in a studio, and they get a little CD from it all. Even though people don't know what to do with CDs at their age anymore,
Yeah.
maybe they give it to their grandparents.
Yeah, as long as they don't think it's a mini frisbee or something.
Yeah, that's right.
Oh gosh. Well, what would you find to be the main gateway? Because I think, in many a church, there's kind of a push to reach, I'd say teens, especially young teens, young adults. It's always been a focus. Have you found any kind of keys or tips where you'd put into a bracket of these things are effective tools for reaching young people?
I think being a teacher in a Christian system down in southern New South Wales, it's mainly more been word of mouth through the teachers and schools I've worked with. So I actually got seconded a day or two each term when I first started doing this to do concerts at different schools in my system, and
Hmm.
then I've pretty much performed concerts at probably 80% or so of the schools in my system. So nearby regional systems also get on board and book concerts. Yeah, word of mouth's been the biggest push, but I've also sort of promoted what I do a little bit through Facebook advertising, particularly promoting the playlist, and uh, just using social media generally, like on Instagram and Twitter and Facebook. I found Instagram's probably the best one because you can DM people a bit more readily. Uh, yeah, that's um, basically how it's sort of grown the last few years.
Yeah.
But yeah, word of mouth, as always, is usually the biggest push. I've been fortunate enough to be on the radio too a few times within my region down in southern New South Wales. There's an area called the Riverina. So ABC radios had me on a few times, which has been cool
Nice.
for getting the message out there of the sort of musical ministry I'm doing.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of Christians reaching non-Christian kids, um, are there any strategies that you think would prove effective or that
Well, I'm
you've seen
hoping
play out that?
hoping they might investigate what I do a bit more. If they get interested in some of the theme day songs I do, like the Father's Day and the Mother's Day song, even the Christmas one that I've teamed up with the Saddleback um, kids. Hopefully, through watching that on YouTube, they might investigate some of my other stuff on the channel, which is the more really Christian focused stuff. Um, but yeah, it is a hard market to tap into because I don't know what it's like over in the UK, but it's getting quite secular in the public systems for schools
Yeah.
in Australia. You mentioned you do Christian music and they sort of just don't want to touch her. Unfortunately, that's the way society's gone the last couple of decades. Whereas scripture teaching was a big thing back when I went to primary school, because I went to a public primary school, and my mum was a scripture teacher, but it's unfortunately falling by the wayside. It's one of the first things that went during COVID. Hopefully, when we get back to normality in Australia, it gets revigorated, which would be lovely. Hopefully, music might be a way to get non-Christian people closer to the gospel, closer to Jesus. But yeah, we'll see how we go.
Yeah. And what was kind of your introduction to Christianity?
Um, yeah, so mum and dad, so I've always been raised as a Christian. My mum was a scripture teacher, and she played the organ at church.
Mhm.
My grandma also played organ at a little chapel,
Nice.
because where we live in a place called Wagga Wagga, there's a RAF base, and yeah, my grandma lived really close to the RAF, and this is back in the day when civilians could go on base heaps. It's like a little town in
Mm.
the in the RAF complex, and she'd play the organ, and we'd go there. I think my sister was actually baptized there at that little RAF chapel. My brother played music at at church as well, and I didn't get into it till really late. So we had a piano at home, and the only mainly music we had were hymns. For mum and my brother were playing at church, so I sort of learning piano by reading most of the music that was in the C scale. Didn't really like the sharp notes and the flats, but I was pretty good with the main keys on the piano. And then later, when I finished school, I ended up going to a Catholic school for high school, and sort of got thinking about religion a little bit more as I finished school. Probably rebelled a little bit as a teenager, as a lot of us do, but got back more into it after high school and did a little bit of theology with my teaching, and learned to play guitar. And from there, it's sort of um, fallen into helping with worship in Christian schools I've worked at, and got into it a bit more as I've got older. It's matured with age.
Yeah, nice. Did you see, so like within those communities and like the Christian schools and whatnot, because you started off on a dairy farm, is that correct?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
um, yeah, so went to a public school, then went to Catholic high schools in Wagga Wagga, and I was helping Dad often afternoons milking the cows. I didn't have to do the morning shift, thank goodness,
Yeah.
'cause I was probably getting up about 6, maybe a bit before, and you have to leave on the school bus at 8. But of an afternoon, we'd get home, and me and my brothers would take different turns each afternoon to help Dad. We'd only go for an hour or so, but yeah, it was good pocket money. Um, yeah, so that was pretty much my teenage years. So I helped milking cows, and I was playing a bit of sport on the side. I was really into cricket too when I was younger.
Yeah.
I'd probably might have been one of the things holding me back from music. I didn't really get into music till I finished school. I was mucking around the piano a bit as a teenager, but I think it was 18, 19. I had a gap year in between school and uni, and I just went to the local music shop each fortnight and learn a few chords and
Nice.
a few scales. And after a while, I started singing when I started strumming along, and within a few years, I sort of used those skills to in schools basically. Yeah.
Yeah. So it was quite rural then, right? From the picture I've got in my head.
Yeah, the music, is that what you mean?
As in the area that you grew up in, Wagga Wagga. Was it quite a
Oh,
rural area, far from
yeah,
the city?
rural. Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing how the last 10 or 20 years it's got a bit more metro. There's not like many big buildings. It's like a big country town. They say it's the biggest regional city in New South Wales. I think it's like 70 or 80,000. So it's not very big, but it has
Mhm.
grown a lot the last few years. Um, and yeah, with that, I'll say the cityscape, the big township has
Yeah.
changed a lot, and the culture of the place has changed a lot. Um, yeah, I think it's becoming more secular. So
Hmm.
I guess it's good to have Christian artists pushing the music a lot within the region. Um, but yeah, definitely still very rural. This time of the year is shocking actually. All the farmers are making hay or silage or
Yeah.
harvesting canola, and it's just hay fever
Oh God.
galore. I was sneezing heaps and blowing my nose before this. I got on here, and I'm like,
Oh
oh,
man.
I don't think I've got COVID or something. It's just that time of the year. here in
But like,
Wagga.
how did like you and I guess people your age, how did you get your kicks? Where did you get your fun from within that environment?
Yeah, sports really big in Wagga. It's one of the things they promote the town as the city of good sports, and
Okay.
we've actually had a lot of international sportsmen come from Wagga. I'm not sure if you remember years ago, if you're into cricket, Michael Slater and Mark Taylor. Mark Taylor used to be the Australian cricket captain, so they were originally from Wagga.
Yeah.
Yeah, so rugby league's quite big here, as I know it's big in England, the northern part of England, I think.
Hmm.
Um, and a few people play rugby union, soccer or football, as you guys probably call it,
Yeah, yeah.
over in the UK. It's getting bigger. I actually played, we call it old man soccer. The comp I played for the last nearly 10 years.
Nice.
I've just got back into summer soccer, six-a-side, because we're allowed to do it now. COVID regulations are starting to ease up a little bit.
Yeah.
And there's probably one of the most popular sports here in Australia is our own version of football. It's called Australian rules football,
Yeah,
sort of
yeah.
similar to Gaelic in a way, like the Irish do. Yeah, so yeah, sports huge in Wagga. The music scene, yeah, it's mainly a lot of people playing pub covers and all the different pubs around the town. Most people, I think, to get really big music hits go to Sydney or Melbourne, because Wagga's halfway between. It's about 5 hours south of Sydney and 5 hours north of Melbourne, which is great for me for what I'm doing
Hmm.
if I want to try and get gigs in Sydney and Melbourne. But yeah, mainly sport is what people do here in Wagga.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, I was just wondering, just in terms of the trajectory, but it sounds like in that kind of environment, like learning some type of skill, kind of you kind of have the time and the headspace to kind of be able to do it. What in terms of your friends like that you had growing up, what were their kind of pathways? Did they manage to steer towards the church, or did you find a lot of your friendship group moving away from the church?
Um, yeah, well, not many of my friends go to church, unfortunately.
Hmm.
Even though we went to Catholic schools and high schools, hardly any of them were practicing Catholics. They more call them C and E Catholics, Christian and Easter. They might go to a service then. Yeah, actually, some of my best buddies, my best mates, aren't Christian at all. It's just what I've been brought up with. Yeah, it's very,
Hmm.
very secular. The world I live in here. Uh, there are a couple of good friends I made at uni, girls, because I did primary school teaching. It was probably 95% female, that were into the uni had a Christian fellowship group, and they were into really into their faith, into some Christian churches around Wagga. But they've all moved on to different paths. I've got a good friend. She's in Canberra now, a couple of hours from Wagga. But yeah, most of them are quite secular. My friends,
Mm.
the ones I've found become matey with at church, often a bit older than me.
Mm.
Yeah, so yeah, I guess that's made it tough too. If it probably wasn't for my parents, the upbringing I had, I might have fell into the same category. So I'm hoping um, I'm a good example to my kids, so to lead them on the right path. Because it's tough with the culture and environment we live in these days. Whereas a few generations ago, there would have been more practicing Christian people,
Yeah,
I would say.
100%. So it's just looking ahead and looking forward in your career. For people who are watching this, what can they pray for you and your ministry and your life?
Hope for praying and hoping that my music gets into the ears of people that need to hear it. Because I'm finding the more I'm getting into music, that's the hardest part. Like, you might have really cool music and cool videos, but promoting it and getting it in front of the right people is the hardest part.
Exhausting.
Um, yeah, it's just particularly I dabbled a bit with Facebook, Instagram advertising, and it was going quite well, particularly promoting this playlist I was talking about, Upbeat Christian Kids. But after Apple changed their privacy settings, it just mucked up the algorithm big time. So yeah, I think the biggest prayer and hope is just getting what I'm doing out to the right people that might be able to be advocates for it and get it out to more people. Because I'm sure there's lots of people doing what I'm doing, but they're in the same boat. They're sort of limited because there's only a set amount of people that are knowing what they're doing. Yeah, so getting the music out to the right people would be the biggest prayer and hope, I think. And not to pray for continued insomnia, but just for continued inspiration from the Spirit. So these lyrics still keep on dropping. Like I tend to still write songs from insomnia. I've written a few the last few months. I had a big drought for about 6 months, 9 months, but they're starting to come back now, which is cool. But yeah, so hopefully the inspiration continues and the music and the videos and the resources I'm putting out go to the right people. Well, one thing I did find interesting with all this COVID, I don't know what it's like in the UK, but in Australia, particularly in New South Wales where I am, the kids and people at church, we can't have congregational singing because it spreads the virus too much. So a lot of people are, well, I've noticed teaching the last decade or so, my kids, my students love doing just dances, like just putting something up on YouTube on the screen. The kids follow along and copy the actions. I've never been much of a dancer, but the last 6 months or so, I've put up a few dance videos to suit some of my music, and we're sort of pivoted that way. So that might be another way to get the music out there. So it's sort of like scripture based, just dance.
Yeah, that's
Like
pretty
there's
cool,
about
man.
6 or 7 songs on YouTube now I've got out that have me doing some dances. I'm the uncleest dancer, but I think the kids enjoy copying the moves.
Yeah, that's cool, man. That's cool. Yeah, David, man, it's been great talking to you. Like, I wish you every success in the future. And yeah, I feel like I've contributed to your insomnia, so I apologize. But
No, I really appreciate it, Jay. It's been awesome connecting with you. And yeah, I really appreciate all the support of you and the Lions Den. And yeah, all the best with what you're trying to do too. And yeah, hopefully we can continue to keep supporting each other along our journeys, spreading that gospel through our music.
yeah, for sure, man. You take care. It's so unique what you do, and if it isn't unique, it's as you said, it's not cutting through. So I'm glad I found you. My kids have someone to listen to. So yeah, keep doing what you're doing, man. It's special and it's needed.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
Take care, man. Get some sleep.
I will try. I might have to write a song now.